Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's your boy, Delightful Kiss Boy, and today I'm going to be playing Demon Bluff, which is a demo for an upcoming kind of social deduction, quote-unquote, roguelike-ish, deck-building-ish game that's been a lot of fun for me to play. I've been playing a good amount of it since last night when my friends told me about it, and I was like, hey, let me just record myself playing it because it reminds me of this game that I absolutely love in real life. I mean, like, in-person game, which is Blood on the Clocktower, which is this, social deduction game. Lots of similarities between the two, and been having a good time with it. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, for those who have been asking about blueprints, do not worry, I will get back into the blueprints mines soon. I've just been a little bit busy in my, normal life outside of YouTubing, and I haven't had the energy to do the whole blueprints thing, but I do want to get back into it. But for now, let's play some Demon Bluff, all right? Here we go. All right, we got the demo here. I'll explain how it works. So we're going to go with standard here. I'm on Ascension 6 so far since last night. But basically, the goal is that you're going to have this, like, random setup, okay? And you're trying to find all the evils and kill them all, all right? So it says there are 3 evils among all characters. Find and kill them. So that's what we're going to do. All right, so here we go. So these are all of the possible characters that can show up in the town, all right? And we know that there are 5 villagers. So villagers are these purple guys up here. 1 outcast, so one of these 2 outcasts will be in the town. And then there's 2 minions. These are the 2 minions here. There's minion, and then there's witch. And then 1 demon, which is Ba, okay? And they all have these different effects. So for example, let's start with the demon. Ba adds 1 fake outcast to the deck view, all right? And he lies and he disguises, okay? So let's just get into it. It'll make more sense, but basically what this is saying is that there's one of these 2 outcasts that is going to be fake and isn't actually able to show up in the town, all right? But let's get started. It'll make sense more as I'm playing. I just want to make sure there's nothing that prevents me. So which makes it so that we strategically want to reveal, like, in a certain order, okay? So because we cannot reveal the last card in the town while the witch is still alive. So I need to be a little bit more strategic about how I'm revealing these cards. And one of the things that I also am seeing is there's an architect potentially in the town, which will tell me which side of the circle is more evil, or, if they're equally evil, right? And so in that case, I want to prioritize all of the cards that are on the left or the right and not this center card, so I can get the maximum amount of information. So I'm going to start with number 1 here. All right, so this is the baker, okay? Now, the baker is an interesting one. When you reveal the baker, 1 random unrevealed good villager becomes a baker, and then you learn which villager you were, okay? So that means that as soon as I flip this over, one of these other cards around the circle here would also become a baker. But here's the thing. This is impossible for it to have been the Empress and be a baker, all right? This would have to be the original baker. So what I can go ahead and do is I've got this little annotation tool, is I can go ahead and just say that this, right off the bat, is definitively a lie, okay? Now, what I want to do is, before we go on, I want to see, is there any way that we can get lies that involves, like, could a good player lie, essentially, right, in this lineup? Ba doesn't cause lying, so there's a mechanic called corruption, which can cause lies. Now, I do see that none of the evil characters can cause lies, but the Plague Doctor can cause lies, because 1 good villager will be corrupted, all right? So it's possible that the Plague Doctor is corrupting the baker, and then that's causing the baker to lie, so I won't kill the baker yet, okay? Let's just proceed around the circle. So I got number 2 here, and then he's saying that I cured 0 corruptions, okay? So these are basically at odds with each other right off the bat. Either the alchemist is lying and the baker is corrupted, or the baker is, evil and the alchemist is correct, Either way, we don't know yet. All right, let's move over to number 3. We got architect, which is saying that both sides are equally evil. All right, that would mean we have three evils. So if this is true, that would mean there'd have to be one evil on this side, one evil on this side, and then this ninth place card would be evil. Now, given that this architect is telling me that they're equal, now this card becomes important. So I am going to flip this one over. This one is the Plague Doctor. Okay, that's good to know. Now notice that there's only one space for an outcast to be. All right, as we can see here, there's only two different options for what the outcast can be, and there's the Plague Doctor. So if we do not see any other outsiders or outcasts, then this Plague Doctor might be legit. Okay, so let's keep going around. Let's go to number 8 over here. So Empress is saying that one of 4, 9, and 3 is evil. So exactly one of them. Okay. Here we got another baker who is also lying, saying that they were the druid. So that's another lie, and that's interesting. All right, so this is definitely a lie right here. So we have 2 lies so far, proven lies, essentially. Now let's flip over number 6. This is a druid. Okay, there's also a double claim, essentially, but let's keep moving on. And then number 8 is a real empress. So this poet lets us learn random info. This poet is telling us that this empress is legit. So they're basically confirming, this one's confirming this one. Okay? So let's figure out what we can figure out, because we can't reveal this last card until we execute the witch. We have a druid here. The druid, what I can do is use the ability, pick 3 characters and learn 1 random outcast among them, if any. All right. So the only other place an outcast could go on this board, because we have only 2 options and neither of them are hidden, is in number 4, position number 4. Right. So I'm going to go ahead and use the druid, and I'm going to pick, just these 3. And she's saying that there is a wretch among there, but wretch isn't even on the script. So that's another lie that we've found. All right, so this is a lie. So we have, way too many lies so far, right? Which means that there has to be at least 2 evils among these 3 characters, right? Because this is a lie, this is a lie, this is a lie. But we only have one source of lying that would allow these characters to still be good. So at least 2 of the 3 of these are all evil. Okay. If they're all evil, then this character would also be lying, which would mean that this would have to be the corrupted character, but that conflicts with the alchemist right here. Okay. So if that was the case, then these 3 cannot all be lying. Or they can't all be evil, is what I'm saying. So 2 of the 3 of these have to be evil. So let me go ahead and mark that out. So let's go like this. We have a triangle like this. So 2 evil among these 3, because we have 3 different lies. Now, all right, so let's assume then, so that's 2 of our 3 evils already placed. If this is true, saying that both sides are equally evil, right? That's impossible, because this Plague Doctor up here, well, it's not impossible, okay? If this is also a Plague Doctor that's double claiming this one, and this one's the good one. All right, let's assume, let's try to run through that scenario real quick, actually. Here we go. So let's go ahead and assume that this is true, okay? So if this is true, and we're assuming this is true, and you're good, that means that this Plague Doctor has to be evil, which means this has to be a good character right here, because this would have to be the outsider, which would either be the Bombardier or another Plague Doctor, an actual Plague Doctor, right? If this is the case, this would have to be a Plague Doctor, because we have 3 lies up here, PD, all right? We have 3 lies within here, right? And one of those would have to come from the Plague Doctor, the other 2 would be evil, right? Now, what that means is that this alchemist is apparently curing 0 corruptions. So everybody else outside of that group would have to be good, by the way. So he would be curing 0 corruptions, which would mean that this would have to be evil in order to get this lie, right? So we'd have our 2 evils, like, right there, okay? And then, let's see here. So one of these 2 would have to be evil as well, okay? But let's look at this Empress. This Empress would have to be good, and this one would have to be... Yeah, this one has to be true. Basically, all of our good information after this point would have to be true. And then this would have to be true as well. And this is saying that number 4, which is good, number 9, which is evil, or number 3. So that would be true as well. And then differentiating between these 2, it would be impossible, essentially, right? So let's think about this. 8, both sides would be equally evil. Alright, so this doesn't let us differentiate. We'll have to figure out if the Plague Doctor is, you know, good or not, right? So let's go ahead and erase all of this blue stuff, because that's not telling me much here. This was just like a theoretical scenario. Alright, so we got all the blue out of the way here. What's the next thing that I can look at? Okay. So this is possible, but it would be very specific, right? So if we can detect that this Plague Doctor is good versus evil, that would be helpful, right? So let's think here, So we have 2 evil there. What if this character is evil? I want to see that, alright? So let's say that this is evil, which would mean that this is a lie, right? Well, if this is a lie, then this is also an evil character, because it wouldn't be the real Empress, and that doesn't work. That's too many evils, right? So what that means is that the poet necessarily has to be good, and this has to be true, right? And we've already got our 1 lie amongst all of these people, so that means that this is a good character, and this is also true. So that means that number 4, number 9, or number 3 is evil. Alright, so this is true. So let's think about that. So let's say that number 4 is evil, right? Let's go ahead and try that out. Okay, so let's say number 4 is evil right here. Well, that would imply that this Architect and this Plague Doctor are both good, which is not possible, because this would then be a lie, and then we have too many lies placed. So that means that number 4 has to be good. So number 4 has to necessarily be good. So now that one of the Plague Doctor or the Architect are evil. Let's run through the Architect being evil, because we already ran through the scenario where the Plague Doctor's evil, and we saw that it works, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say Architect is evil, which means this is a lie, and then you're good, right? So you're good. This would be a lie, you would be evil. Both sides are equally evil. And now let's try to figure out what to do from there, okay? So... Well, actually, wait. Before we even we're getting ahead of ourselves, actually. I think that the Alchemist in this case is actually provably good, right? Because now we know that there's an evil between 3, 4, and 9, which are outside of this web of 2 evils, right? So that's 2 evils plus 1 additional evil. That's all 3 evils right there, which means that this Alchemist has to be good and this has to be true, right? So if that's true, that means that necessarily this baker that's lying has to be evil. So let's go from there. Alright, so this baker up here has to be evil. It's the Ba, okay? So it's the demon, which means that the witch is still out there. But this is true, okay? Now this is saying that, both sides are equally evil, okay? Let's go from here. The thing I want to see is one of these is corrupted and one of these is true. I'm going to use the Plague Doctor here and say that the Baker right here is... I'm going to use the Druid. Alright, so this Plague Doctor is saying that number 6 is corrupted and then number 1 is evil. Well, number 1 is evil, that is true. This doesn't necessarily have to... I don't think this implies necessarily that number 6 is for sure corrupted, because if the Plague Doctor is evil, this could still be a lie, I think, in whole. Let me just see. I always see myself as not corrupted even if evil. Alright. I think that's true. Okay, so I think this could potentially still be evil, but it's seeming less and less likely to me. Okay. So, what I want to do is... I think I'm going to go ahead and kill you. Alright, so we got the... Yeah, there we go. So we got that minion there. That means you're good, which means you're corrupted by the Plague Doctor, which means that you have to be evil as well. Alright, we got it, we got it. Okay, so... There we go, there we go. You get... Whoops. You get a little bit of a grace period. Or a little bit of a... kind of a grace thing, right? So you have a certain amount of health, and if you get something wrong, you'll still survive, alright? So, I can take advantage of that, essentially. Alright, let's see what our new lineup is. We have 5 villagers, 1 outcast, 2 minions, 1 demon, okay? So this is our demon minion lineup. We have the Ba again, the Witch again. We have the Poisoner this time, and the Poisoner starts, at the game start, 1 adjacent villager is corrupted, if possible, and they lie in disguise, alright? So, corrupted means that that character lies and their ability doesn't work, but they keep their alignment, okay? We have another Plague Doctor, so another source of corruption, potentially. And we have 3 different possible outcasts in our lineup, okay? And then we have all this other shit here. Okay, so once again, we have Architect, so we want to choose on the outer edges so we get the most information possible. So let's just start with number 1. Alright, so number 1 is a medium, and saying that number 3 is a real Bombardier. And Bombardier is, well, Bombardier isn't even... Oh no, Bombardier is the, this outsider right here. Okay. So, number 1 is confirming number 3. I don't think I need to flip over number 3, okay? Because that means that this one is going to be presenting as number 3. So this can actually be our witch spot, okay? So let's reveal every other card. Alright, we have a Plague Doctor, so we have a conflict right off the bat between these two. So let's reveal every card except the number 3 spot. Alright, there we go. And we know that this is going to be claiming Bombardier, but we have our full information essentially now, okay? So let's go ahead and start figuring this out, okay? So, these two are at conflict, okay? So, let me go ahead and just note this down. So we know that between you two, there is 1 evil, right? Because we have to have 1 outcast, but then both of these are essentially claiming outcast, okay? Now, left side is more evil. Is interesting. Okay, so left side is more evil. Closest evil is clockwise. We go around here. 1 evil adjacent to me from the poet. And then closest evil is counterclockwise. So both of these enlightened are pointing at the poet, but one of those 2 enlightened has to be evil. At least one of those 2. Right? Because they're double claiming each other, and there's nothing else on the village board that causes like a double claim like this. So what I want to do here is I'm going to say, you know, between these 2, it's going to be greater than or equal to 1 evil. Whoops. Actually, it cannot be... I don't think it could specifically be... No, I guess it could be. Greater than or equal to 1 evil, right? So we have 2, at least 2 of our evils placed so far out of 3, right? So that's pretty good. The poet right here is saying that there's 1 evil adjacent to them, okay? So let me run through the scenario where both of these characters are evil, okay? What if that's the case? It's pretty unlikely, but let's go ahead and see it. Okay, so let's say you're evil and you're evil. That means that every other character out here has to be good, right? Except for these two, okay? So these are all good, all right? And this would have to be a lie right here, okay? Once again, I think there's only a form of corruption from, what is it? The poisoner, okay, the poisoner and the plague doctor, okay? So that would have to be a lie. They would have to be corrupted either by the plague doctor or one of the like a poisoner sitting next to them, right? In this case, left side is more evil, would be true, right? So this would be true, which means that this is a good player, a good character that's uncorrupted, okay? Because we'd have two evils over on this side. This would be correct, but could be corrupted if... Well, how would you be corrupted? I guess you could be corrupted by the plague doctor. This one would be corrupted by an adjacent poisoner. So that all works. Okay. We don't know about the rest of this shit. Okay, so both of these technically could be evil. That's interesting to note. Okay, well, let's come up with a different world. Okay, I'm gonna do this one in yellow. I'm just trying to figure out how I want to use these characters. So let me explain this, by the way. Oh shit, I didn't mean to click on that when I was coming back here. But hey, I guess I gotta do it now. So I'm gonna go ahead and check if the poet is corrupted. He's saying that number 6 is not corrupted. Alright. But, I mean, that's good to know. I would have rather have saved that to later. But what I was gonna say is that in the top right corner here, you can click on this little button here, and it'll use their ability, and certain characters, you know, you're able to use their ability later. It's not just sprung on you right off the bat. But anyway, we accidentally clicked on the little button for the Plague Doctor, and we know that this scenario now is impossible. Well, it's not impossible, because the Plague Doctor could be the evil there, lying about all of this shit. So, there you go. Good to know. So, we know now that there's one evil between these two, one evil between these two. Which evil do I want to differentiate? I think I want to differentiate between these two as much as possible. And so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this fortune teller and check the plague doctor with the not the bombardier, because they're conflicting information. Let's check it against the judge over here. All right, so it's saying that 2 or 8, one of them is evil. All right, so that's interesting info there. Okay, let me get rid of all this blue, by the way. I don't really want to keep this up here just so I can keep track of this shit a little bit better. All right, so this is interesting. I mean, this could be a lie in of itself, right? So we still have the judge. The judge is our last ability. And the judge can tell us if a character is lying, but the judge themselves could be lying. So it's a little bit tricky, right? So what do I want to do here? What do I want to do here? So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little bit of my health to kill the Plague Doctor and confirm if they're good or evil. Alright, so the Plague Doctor is good, which means that this has to be evil. Alright, and that is the Poisoner, so that's good to know. Okay. Now the Poisoner would be, if this is a good character, corrupting this character, right? Which would mean that this would either be... So this has to be false no matter what. So let me go ahead and note that down. Alright. So let's go ahead and say this is a lie, regardless of whether or not this architect is good or evil, right? So you're good, you're obviously evil, okay? And then this is a lie as well, right? So this is a lie, okay, but we don't know, once again, we don't know if they're good or evil yet, because the Plague Doctor is still corrupting, okay? So we have one evil there. Let me just come back in here. Okay, so next step here Okay, so 3 is a real bombardier. So this fortune teller is saying that one of these two is evil. We know that this one is good. So that would imply, let's assume that the fortune teller is telling the truth here, okay? Let's go with that. So true, which would mean that the fortune teller would have to be good, which would mean the judge would have to be evil, right? Now, if the judge is evil, then this is a lie, because this would have to be either clockwise, the closest evil being clockwise, which would be the judge, or equidistant, right? That both of these would be evil, right? So this has to be a lie. And then on top of that, let me think here. So this has to be a lie, so that means that either... So there would have to be another evil on the right, because this, if this is a good character, then the right side has to have more evils than the left side, which would mean that all of these would have to be good, right? So all of these would have to be good, and you would have to be evil over here, you know, which lines up with that lie. But now we have a problem here probably, right? Because all of a sudden, clockwise is not true. So this would be a lie, and this would also be a lie, which is way too many lies. Do you believe in society's lies? So that does not work. So this has to be a lie up here, actually. Okay, so that's valuable information. It doesn't necessarily mean that the fortune teller is evil yet, I don't think, but it means that the fortune teller is lying, okay? So let's go ahead and note that down. Sorry, there's a little bit of schmutz right here that I gotta erase here. So the fortune teller is lying, okay? So let's go ahead and jot that down. This is a lie, a bald-faced lie, which means that the judge has to be good, is definitively good, okay? Whether or not the judge will lie is another question, okay? So we don't know, you know, which of these are lies. We know that this has to be a lie right here, okay? So I think I'm going to use the judge to tell if the poet is lying, and I think that'll be helpful, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. Is the poet lying? So the judge is saying that the poet is telling the truth. So if both of them, so if this is lying, and this is lying, that would be 2 more lies, which would be too many lies outside of here. So I think that these are both true. Right? So these are both true is what I'm thinking. Okay, so let's go ahead and note that down. So this is true, and this has to be a good character where this is true, I believe. Which means that one of these two, so not one or more, one of these two is evil. Okay? Now, if this one is the evil one, they're saying that counterclockwise is the closest evil, right? Which would mean... Well, okay, let's say this one's good, okay? So I'm thinking this fortune teller is probably evil. And that there's also an evil on the left here, because... Well, I mean, this could be... I don't know. Let's figure this out. So, let's run through our scenarios here. So let's assume... Let's first of all assume that the fortune teller is good, right? Let's assume the fortune teller's good, just to try to get a counter example, right? So now we know that this is a lie, which means the right side is more evil, because it can't be equal because the fortune teller is good. So that means that this would have to be an evil character and this would have to be an evil character, which places two... Or sorry, no, it would not have to be that. It would be that one of these two is an evil character, one of these two is an evil character. So, one of these two, one of these two, okay? Then that would be a lie, which would have to be coming from the plague doctor, right? This would be true. This would be true. There would be a... This would be coming from the Plague Doctor. This one would have to be coming from the Poison. So that would mean that this would have to be the evil character up there. You would have to be the good one. Okay? And that would be all of our sources of lying out of the way for, like, good characters, right? So there's one adjacent evil next to me, which is true. Closest evil is counterclockwise, okay? So if this is good, that would be pointing to this. So I guess they're kind of just pointing to each other, huh? So it's non-differentiable in that case. So that works if you're good, okay? But you'd have to be lying with like a corruption sort of a thing, right? Okay. So I'm just trying to think if there's anything else we can do here to differentiate between all of this shit. So left side is more evil. I don't know. We're kind of in a pickle here, actually, is what I'm seeing. Let me just go ahead and say, what if you're evil, right? If you're evil up there, then we could either have the Bombardier or the Architect being evil, or we could have... well, no, we couldn't. These would have to both be good, right? So if you're evil, then both of you would have to be good, because that's all three of our evils right there, right? So if that's the case, there'd be a lie here. This would be a lie from the Poisoner, right? So basically, lie from the Poisoner, lie from the Plague Doctor, and then there'd be the one lie over here from the evil player, right? So it seems like regardless, this Architect over here is good. Okay, so let me go ahead and write that in. So you are, regardless of anything, you have to be good. Okay? So you're good in every scenario, you're good in every scenario. These could be, yeah, we're in a little bit of a pickle here, I think. I think I may have maybe misused the judge there. Or potentially the fortune teller. Let me just think. Because we only have one more shot here. We might die. So one evil between those two. Well, so let's think about this. Let's think about this. Actually, okay, wait, no, this is good. This is good. This is how we differentiate. This is how we differentiate. Look at this. Okay, this one here, closest evil is clockwise. Well, we know that there's an evil in the Poisoner, right? And we know that you're good and that you're good. So that means that there has to be one evil between these two. So if this was true, then that cannot be true. So this has to be a lie. Because basically, if this was a good character, these would be equidistant. And that's what this Enlightened would say. So this is a lie. Okay? Now this is saying closest evil is counterclockwise, right? If that's true, then there'd be one here, and it could also be this one, but then the fortune teller would have to be good. So if this is true, then the fortune teller would have to be good. If this is false, then it could be both of these, right? But let me think. Yeah, actually, wait. Let me dive into that real quick. That's interesting. Okay, there we go. I think that might be the thing that we can use to differentiate this. Okay, so let's say that. Well, first of all, let's assume that you're good. Okay, so if you're good and you're lying, that's the Plague Doctor lie right there, because this is the lie from the Poisoner. This is the lie from the Plague Doctor for good players. Right? If that's true, then you have to be evil, which means that this has to be false. Okay? Which means that the closest evil is counterclockwise, meaning the closest evil is clockwise. Okay? So this one can't be evil, so good. This one could be evil. Good. But yeah, so let's go from there. So let's say you're good, but you're lying. That would mean that this would have to be a lie, but it could not be coming from the Plague Doctor, so you would have to be evil, right? So we'd have our two evils on this side right over here. And then that's all three evils right there. So then you're good and you're lying, but where does that lie come from? It doesn't come from anywhere. So that's not possible, all right? So basically that initial assumption we made cannot be the case. You cannot be good. So you have to be evil. Yeah, there we go. All right, there we go. So this has to be evil. All right, so that's the witch right there. That's the witch. So that means that you have to be good now necessarily. There we go. Now we're cooking. All right, so you're good. You're evil down here, obviously. Whatever, I'll just leave that there for now. Now we go from here. So the closest evil is counterclockwise, which means that if this is true, then the fortune teller is good, but lying, right? So let's go through that next now, actually. So left side is more evil. This is a lie. So either one of these two, I mean, yeah, we already knew that. One of these two has to be evil now. Let's see if I can differentiate between the two. Let me just erase this so that I don't get confused here. So you're definitely evil, obviously. Now, let's run through this. Let's assume that the medium is evil, okay? So you're evil, which would mean that the fortune teller would be... Actually, no, I want to go the other way around, okay? Let's assume the fortune teller is evil and that you're good, okay? That would mean that you're a lie. That's the Plague Doctor lie right there, okay? Now, this would be another lie, though, because they're equidistant, right? So closest evil is not counterclockwise anymore, so this would be another lie. And that's impossible because they have to be good, and this is already another good lie right there. So the medium has to be the final evil here. All right, there we go. All right, that one was a bit tricky. Took me a bit, but that was a fun one. I like that. I like that. All right, here we go. Now, this one's interesting, okay? Because I noticed this little thing popped up down here. But now we have a demon that will kill a random unrevealed character at night and then deal 2 damage to us. All right, so let's go over what night is. So there's a night cycle that says when you reveal a card, the clock ticks. After 4 ticks, night falls. During the night, some demons may kill, and various characters can take action. After every character has acted, the game returns to daytime. All right, so basically, after every 4 characters that we're going to reveal, one of them is going to die because of the Lilith demon, and then we will lose 2 health, okay? We have the Shaman, which says that there are 2 village roles that are the same role, right? So basically, there'll be like double claims from the Shaman right off the bat. That's guaranteed, though, so you can make some deductions about that. The Counselor makes it so that one villager becomes an outcast role, and they sit next to an outcast, all right? So that means that there should be both a Plague Doctor and a Bombardier in the mix here, because there's one outcast by default. The Counselor adds another one, okay? And then we got all this other shit. All right, so we have to be cognizant of the order that we want to do things in. Once again, we have an Architect, so we want to reveal the outer, you know, not this card to start off with. So let's go ahead and flip you over. We have Jester, we have Oracle. So now number 6 or number 8 is a Shaman. So I'm going to not reveal that because the demon might, like, kill them. Okay, so I'm not going to reveal number 6 or number 8 yet. All right, we're going to keep going around. Architect is saying the left side is more evil, so I definitely want to keep going on the right here. And saying number 6 is good. The demon killed number 8, so that means that if this is true, number 6 has to be the Shaman. But the Gem Crafter is saying number 6 is good. So let me go ahead and reveal you. It's saying number 6 or number 2 is the Shaman. We'll flip you over, and we'll finally flip you over, and then we'll flip you over. And then there's no more, you know... no more people for the demon to kill, so there we go. Okay. So, we have our setup here. Let's start figuring this out, okay? So let's look around here. As we're not going to be able to know what character this was. So this could have been a double claim, but we have 2 double claims here, right? We have 2 jesters, we have 2 oracles. The only source of double claiming should be from the shaman or another evil character. So that means there has to be at least 1 evil among those 4, right? So let me go ahead and note that down. Let me switch back to red here. So basically, among all 4 of these, there has to be greater than or equal to 1 evil. All right, so we have at least one of our 3 evils placed within those 4. Okay, we have both of our outsiders placed, outcasts, I should say. And we would know that the counselor has to sit next to one of them, unless it could be possible that this is an outcast that we're never going to be able to see, and then that one of these 2 is like impersonating an outcast, but that's, I guess, a little bit less likely, you know? Alright, so this oracle is saying number 6 or number 8 is a shaman. This one's saying number 6 or number 2 is a shaman. Now the bombardier, by the way, if we kill them, if we execute them and they're actually the bombardier, we just lose the game. So probably don't want to do that. So I'm going to start off by assuming that they're not the shaman, in which case this would be a lie, which is possible from the Plague Doctor. We're going to have our jesters here, where we get to choose 3 characters and learn how many of them are evil. So figuring out how to best utilize that is going to be interesting, okay? But first of all, before I get into that, let's start going through some different worlds that we could build here. All right, so let's assume that this is true. I think this is probably our most powerful. Actually, no. Let's go with this. All right, so let's assume that this is true. Okay, if this is true, that means that you have to be good, and then you have to be evil, specifically as the shaman, right? So sham. Okay, so you would be evil, which would mean that this would have to be a good character, and this would have to be the good bombardier. So specifically the good bombardier, okay? But then that doesn't work, see? Or sorry, no, this is shaman, okay? So then one of these 2 would have to be the counselor, because they have to sit next to an outcast, right? But let's think about this, okay? So that would be the shaman. The demon type is the Lilith. Yeah, I forgot. All right, so here we go. Okay, so if that's the case, then number 6 is good. This would be a lie, right? And this would be true, right? So this would be true, which would mean that you would have to be good, which would mean that the double claim, yeah, would have to be between these 2 jesters here, right? So what are our sources of lies, by the way? Let me just check this real quick. So it's just the Plague Doctor that causes corruption. So all good characters except for 1 have to be telling the truth, right? So this would be a lie. These would be true. Let's go with the assumption that they're good. Alright, so let's say that you're good, in this case. That would mean that there would be 1 evil here, 1 evil there. These are all good, which would mean that you would have to be evil, right? So you would have to be evil, which would mean that after that point, it says left side is more evil, which would have to be false. So then you would have to be evil, and you would be good. Okay? So that's scenario 1. Let's go with the other assumption that, I don't know, let's use green here. Okay, let's say you're evil in this case. If you're evil, then that's saying number 6 is, good. We can still place a lie somewhere else, okay? In fact, we would have to place a lie somewhere else. But it could be one of the jesters that we have not used yet. So that gets a little bit tricky. But it would mean that, you know, this architect would have to be good. Okay? So that's interesting. There's a lot to unpack there. Let's look at some more scenarios, right? So number 6 is good. Okay, well, yeah, that's not telling me a ton. That's not a ton to go off of yet. I mean, I'm definitely going to have to be using these jesters to try to figure this shit out, but I think that there's probably going to be one of the two of them being evil. But you know what? Let's run through the scenario that both jesters are good, right? So let's assume that both jesters are good. And we'll go based off of this, okay? If both jesters are good, then that means that necessarily one of the two oracles, at least one of the two oracles has to be evil, right? Which means that number 6 could not be the shaman. And so this would have to be a lie in this case. The reason being is that if number 6 was the shaman, then both of these would be true, right? This one could still technically be true, though, because number 2 could be the shaman. Which is interesting. Alright, so let's think about this. So, number 6 or number 2 is the shaman. Number 6 could still be evil if both jesters are good. Okay? Is the problem there. Number 6 is good. I don't know. This is a not a very useful path to go down here. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to have both jesters check the same set of people. It's just what set of people do I want to check? I mean, okay, one other thing, though, to go off of is we know that this character is for sure good because they died, and the demon kills good characters first, if possible, and if it was an evil character, it would have made a comment as it died, essentially, okay? So that character's good, so I think what I want to do is I want to include that character in our jester juggles, right? So that's a baseline, and then we can try to get down to like 2 people, right? So we know that you have to be good, so we'll use you and then juggle with these other characters out here, okay? So let me think. So who do I want to check, though, is the thing. So what was our first? Our first one was that the shaman, number 6 or number 2 is the shaman, right? I think I want to include number 6 in there because there's so much shit pointing to number 6. So I think I want to do number 8, number 6, and then one other, all right? And who is the one other? Because the jesters should be able to differentiate between themselves, kind of, maybe, unless they're corrupted by the plague doctor. But including number 6 gives us a lot of information. Left side is more evil. Should I include one of the 2 oracles is the question. I don't know if I do. It's difficult. I mean, we could use it to differentiate between 2 evils. We have one. Basically, we'll have 2 shots. We'll get 1 grace execution, right? Oh man, this is difficult. Okay, let me just get back in the game. Number 8, number 6. We could do number 4. Number 4 is trying to confirm number 6. So they could both be evil. Number 4 could be good and corrupted by the Plague Doctor. I mean, I could also use the Plague Doctor ability to try to differentiate between the shit. But I think I want to hold on to that. So, you know what? I think I'm going to do this. Let's use the first juggler. We'll do number 8. We're going to do number 6. And then I think I am going to do I'm gonna do number 2, actually. Yeah. Alright, they're saying... Okay, Jester number 7 is saying that there's 1 evil. I'm gonna do the same thing with the other one. Saying that there are 3 evils. Alright, well that's obviously a lie. I believe. That is a lie. That's for sure a lie. Okay, so... Let's go ahead and write that in. That is a lie. Could still be good, technically, but then corrupted by the Plague Doctor. But that's definitively a lie. Alright, so... Let's say that... Let's try to make an assumption that this is a lie as well. Right? So let's say that that is a lie as well. That would mean that there would have to be 0 or 2 evils among 8... I mean, it has to be a lie, obviously, because this one is for sure good. Okay, anyway. 8, number 6, and number 2. Let's say that they're both evil in that case, okay? Let's say it's both evil in this case. Okay. If that was the case, then we'd have 2 evils there. This would have to be an outcast. So this wouldn't be an outcast. You would be potentially evil. One of these two would have to be evil. So then this would be good, 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 right? Just like that. If this is also a lie and these are both evil right here, right? Which means that number 6 or number 2 is the shaman. That could be true. Number 6 or number 8 is a shaman. But then number 6 couldn't be the shaman, if that's the case, because this would have to be a lie. Right, so this would have to be a lie, which means that this would have to be something besides the shaman. This would also be a lie. This could be true still. So we have lie, 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 lie. But then we would have all 3 evils placed among all 4 of these. So that's impossible, right? Because... Well, I guess we only have 1 lie outside of that. This would say the left side is more evil. So this would have to be evil. So this one would have to be good. No, but that's the thing, though, right? Is that the lie... That'd be 1, 2, 3, 4 lies... Which would be 3 evils plus... But one of these 2 would be lying and would be good. So that would be the Plague Doctor lies. So this just doesn't work. This just does not work. Okay, so there we go. So... Let me back up. Our initial assumption about... so this could still be a lie. But if it is a lie, then there has to be 0 evils among 8, 6, and 2. Which would mean that this would be good, and you would be good. Right? So if that's the case, then... This is saying number 6 or number 8 is a shaman, so this would be a lie. So that would be the one source of our Plague Doctor lie, right there. Because number 8 can't be the shaman, number 6 can't be the shaman. So then you would have to be evil, and you would have to be evil, right? So we'd have 2 evils right there, okay? And this would be true and good, so true. And number 6 or number 2 is a shaman. This would be a lie. Okay, so this would be a lie, but we already have our lie here, so this would have to be evil, right? And then this is saying the left side is more evil, which would be true. So this would be true. Okay, does that work? That seems to work. That seems to work right there. That does work. I don't see any problems with that. Let me just run through it again real quick. So I think I'm going to use the Plague Doctor on this oracle here and get some more info, okay? So let's use you over here. Number 1 is evil. Number 2 is corrupted. So the Plague Doctor is confirming this. Now, let me think here. Let me think. Is it possible for this Plague Doctor to be evil? That's actually one thing that's going to be useful here, okay? The Plague Doctor, by the way, cannot be corrupted, okay? Because it's an outcast, okay? And it can't corrupt itself, essentially. All right, so let's go ahead and do this. I want to assume that the Plague Doctor is evil, because that would be interesting. All right, so let's say the Plague Doctor's evil and lying about this, okay? If that's the case, that means the Bombardier has to be good, and then this has to be good and another outcast, okay? So then this would have to be a lie, obviously. And let's go from there. So 8, and then 6, 2. 1 would be evil, if this is true. Number 6 is good, this would be true, which means that Gemcrafter would be good. Left side is more evil. So Plague Doctor would be evil. Well, so this one would specifically have to be the Plague Doctor. So PD, right? Just right there. Left side is more evil. Oracle, Jester. So number 6 is good. So okay, if number 2 is not corrupted, so Plague Doctor is saying that number 2 is corrupted, number 1 is evil. Once again, I don't know if like this can be partially true to still be false. I'm going to assume that it can be, right? So it could still be true that number 2 is corrupted, but maybe number 1 is not evil, right? But that's actually impossible. That would be impossible because there's only one source of corruption. So this either has to be, let's assume, so this would have to be false. So you would have to be evil, and you would have to be, I mean, okay, it could still be that number 2 is not corrupted and is evil, and number 1 is also evil, but we'll get to that later. Okay. So number blah blah blah, this one could be true still, because number 2 could be the shaman. But they both can't be evil here. Maybe they could be, because then there could be one good. No, but okay, wait. Oh, I'm thinking about this wrong. Okay, there's a double claim here between the Jesters. There's a double claim between the Oracles. But one of those two sets, actually no, that's not necessarily true. But no, in this case it would be true, because this would have to be the Plague Doctor, right? So we could have another pair if the Plague Doctor here was legit, but we can't have another pair. So that means doubles here, but then doubled up on villagers. So then both of these actually would have to be good in this case. Both of those jesters, excuse me, would have to be good. This one would have to be lying, so that's our one source of Plague Doctor lying, right? And then he's saying number 8, number 6, and then number 2, one of them is evil. That would be true, right? If that were the case. So, because this would be the one evil right there. So we have 2 evils there, and then there would be 1 evil between these 2 right here, right? This one's saying that the left side is more evil. So if they're evil, then they themselves wouldn't be... Then that... I guess that doesn't really give us any information, because if they're evil, then the right side would be more evil, which would be false, which lines up. If they're evil, then the left side would be... Actually, no, the left side would not be more evil. That would be false. So this would be false regardless. This would be a lie regardless. It would mean that this architect would have to be evil, and this shaman would have to be good. So this... Or sorry, this oracle would have to be good. So this is the shaman in this case. Which would... mean that the left side, yeah, okay, that's all good. That's all good. Number 6 is good. That's all good. I mean, this works too, is the problem, right? Man, this is tough. You know, I'm gonna have to use a kill here, I think. The question is, who do I want to kill? If I kill the Plague Doctor, I mean, it's less likely that the Plague Doctor is evil here, right? Number 1 is evil. I'm going to kill number 1. Alright, so so that's true. Okay, so let's go ahead and clear all this shit out. Let's clear all this shit out. So we know the counselor is right there, obviously. Double claiming this. This could be, what I'm saying between this is there could be a double claim between this and something else. We just don't know yet because it's been killed and we can't get that information, right? But this one has to be seated next to an outcast. That means, yeah, the Plague Doctor is legit. The Plague Doctor is for sure legit. Which means this is corrupted, which means number 6 is not the shaman. Alright, so let's go ahead and start writing this back in now. I erased some of this shit, but this is, not sham. Okay, we know that for sure. And number 6 or number 8 is the shaman. This is a lie, and this Plague Doctor is good, and is saying that number 2 is corrupted, which means that this oracle is also good, right? Which means that this one is a lie. Number 6 or number 2 is the shaman. This one would have to be a lie. Number 6 is good. Left side is more evil. I mean, so here's the thing. Corrupted there, that's the one source of corruption from this Plague Doctor, assuming this Plague Doctor is legit. Which I guess it still technically might not be. Because number 1 could be evil, but then number 2 could not be corrupted, right? If that's the case, then they'd both be evil. Oh man, it's hard to wrap my head around. No, but then, yeah, we couldn't have... It was the double claim thing again. Okay, so this is necessarily true. There's 2 lies here. Which means that this oracle has to be evil, I think. Yeah. So then the double claim does have to come from this one. Alright, so there we go. So that is the shaman right there. Okay, so we have 2 evils down. And then this is saying the left side is more evil. And then among 8, 6, 2, there is 1 evil. But we know that these 2 are good. So if the bombardier is evil, then... I mean, we know it's not the shaman, obviously. Number 6 is good. Alright, well, let's assume that the bombardier is evil real quick and just figure out what that implies, alright? So let's say the bombardier is evil, okay? So 8, 6, 2. This would be good and this would be true. This would be a lie, right? So lie right there. You're corrupted, so then the gemcrafter would have to be evil in that case. The architect would be lying as well. So that's too many lies. So the shaman has to be good. Or sorry, the bombardier has to be good, excuse me. So let me go ahead and say you're good. This is true. And you're good. Okay, so you're good. This is true. There's 1 evil among 8, 6, 2. This is a lie. For sure, but we already have this oracle. So this jester over here has to be evil. Alright, there we go. Alright, that took a while, but hey, that's the fun of this game, man. Alright, here we go. We're moving on to the next one. I'll do a couple more of these and then probably call it a day. Here we go. We have a Lilith here, a puppeteer, a counselor, a wretch drunk, architect, blah, blah, blah. Alright, so once again, we want to save this one for last, probably. Alright, closest evil is counterclockwise, so back around this way, so I'll keep going clockwise because we want the Lilith to potentially kill an evil. They're saying, the architect is saying the left side is more evil. The judge, and then hunter. Now they're going to kill somebody. They kill number 5 here. I'm 4 cards away from the closest evil, so that would be number 9 or number 8. Let's just keep going around then. Hunter, lots of hunters. Dreamer, Wretch, and then we just lose 2 more health. Okay, so let's take a look here. There's a counselor and a puppeteer, and there's a wretch and a drunk. All right, so there have to be 2 outcasts here, but the drunk is going to be hidden. Now, the drunk is a corrupted character that appears like a villager, but it's an out-of-play villager, to be specific. So what we're seeing here is we're seeing a triple claim, which should not happen here at all. So that means that there's no shaman, for example. There's no doppelganger, which is an outcast that can replicate a a good villager. So there have to be 2 evils between, at least 2 evils between all these hunters, right? So let me go ahead and type that in. Okay, let me just write that in here. So this is 2, I'll say 3, I'll just do it like this, evils. Okay, there we go. So 2 or 3 evils, okay? Now the wretch, by the way, they appear as evil to other characters, okay? Now this is obviously a lie because the wretch appears evil to this hunter. It should, because it registers as an evil minion to other characters. So let's go ahead and fill this in. This is definitively a lie, right there. Additionally, let me see here. So 1, 2, this is also a lie. And 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is also a lie because there has to be at least 1 evil between those 2 over there. So we have 3 lies right off the bat. And now what I want to do is I want to see, is there any source of corruption here? There is the drunk, right? So there could be a drunk that thinks they're a hunter plus 2 double claiming minions claiming the out-of-play rule, right? So that's possible. So I don't want to rule that out. But we know they're all lies. So what does that mean? Okay, so left side is more evil. So that's, I think that's pretty clearly true. Let me just make sure. Because this wretch doesn't contribute to that, there have to be at least 2 evils among these. So that'd be maybe these 2. I guess there could be an evil over there as well. But it says closest evil is counterclockwise, going towards the wretch. So this is true unless the architect is also evil. So let me just go through that scenario, okay? Let's say that this is a lie, all right? Let's say that this is a lie right here. Then that would mean that this would have to be an evil character right here, and then this would have to be a lie as well, which says that the left side is more evil, okay? Now, if that is a lie, that means the right side has to be more evil or it has to be equal, right? Which would mean that this hunter down here would have to be evil. Because if both of these are evil, then this is true. So this one would have to be evil right there, and then there would have to be a drunk and evil between these 2, right? And in that case, we can't really differentiate between anything, okay? Let's go ahead and assume, so if this is a lie though, wait, but there's no no, there is a drunk, but there would have to be a drunk over here, so this would have to be evil as well, and then there's too many evils, right? Yeah, so in that case, that means that that enlightened has to be telling the truth. Oops, sorry. Let me just, I erased the wrong thing there. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but I'll just put this back in. All right, so this is obviously a lie. This one has to be true, actually. Which means you're good. I mean, you're good for sure because you're the wretch. And then you are good as well. I'm just trying to think, is there a scenario where the wretch is actually evil? Well, that would still line up. They're either evil or they're the wretch. So I don't know for sure they're good yet, actually, because this could be the wretch down here, right? Technically. Yeah, we don't know for sure they're the wretch yet. Okay, anyway. Left side is more evil. Okay. These both have to be good. This could be true, or, I mean, they could be the drunk. Let me see here. Puppeteer. Oh, right, the puppeteer, though, adds another evil. Wait, so let me go back and check that, because that might be wrong, actually. Sorry, I forgot the puppeteer adds another evil here. So the puppeteer makes one of their neighbors evil, but the neighbor will still, you know, tell the truth. Alright, so we're going to say this is a lie, okay? Which means that you would have to be evil. And then the left side is more evil. That's not necessarily true, because this could be the puppeteer. Okay, never mind. We cannot make that conclusion right off the bat. Jumping to conclusions, because I forgot about the puppeteer. Alright, so I think what I want to do is I want to use the judge to tell if the architect is lying. So number 2 is saying that telling the truth is what this judge is saying. And then I'm going to use this dreamer to check one of the hunters. And I'm going to check this hunter here. Number 7 could be puppeteer. Okay, so the dreamer says that you learn an evil role. If evil is picked, you learn what correct role they are. And the puppeteer, random adjacent villager becomes a puppet. It's evil, but it cannot lie. So here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. The dreamer, if this is true, okay, and this is the puppeteer, then I think that this dreamer would probably have to be evil and self-reporting. But not necessarily, I guess. I don't know. Or there isn't an additional evil, I guess. Number 2 is saying the truth. I'm going to kill this hunter right here. Alright, there we go. So we got a Lilith right there. And I think I'm going to kill this hunter too. Alright, we got the puppeteer, which means that you have to be evil as well. Alright, there we go. So we have 3 evil right there. This has to be true. This has to be true. This could be the drunk still. You're good, you're good. They're dead. I mean, I think it has to just be you, right? Alright, well, there you go. You got all of them. Alright, that one was pretty simple. Let me go ahead and just do, like, one more, because that one was pretty quick. And I'm having fun. Alright, I like this game. Alright, we have 5 villagers, 1 outcast, 2 minions, 1 demon. We got the Ba, we got the Poisoner. We have the Doppelganger this time. So the Doppelganger is an outcast that disguises themselves as a good villager. They'll tell the truth, but they'll be an outcast. Alright? So there's one source of misinformation here from the Poisoner. Otherwise, we're all good. Looks like a pretty charitable setup. Yeah, we can just flip everything over. Alright, so let's go ahead and just flip everything over here. Alright, so we have a double claim here, and we don't have any bombardier, so that means it's guaranteed that there is a doppelganger in play, and the only place that a doppelganger can go is between these bishops here, so that means that they both have to be good in that case, right? So you're good, and you're good. Because the doppelganger has to copy an in-play villager, and there's only one double claim. So, there you go. They're both good there. Alright, so let's go through the other stuff here. So this is saying number 6 is good. I'm 3 cards away from the closest evil. 1 is evil. Number 2, which is not true. Number 4, or number 7, excuse me. Then we have the Knight. Alright, the Knight just makes it so they can't die. Alright, they're pretty not very useful, I guess. Let's see. So, well, the bishop, let's look at the bishop. So between 2, 6, and 1, there's an outcast villager and a minion. Between 3, 2, and 6, there's a minion, villager, and outcast. Does the order here matter? Wait. Does it tell you the order? I've never noticed that before. Wait. All characters in my info are villagers. If lies... Oh, if lies, all characters in my info are villagers. I don't know why I don't know what determines the order there. But if they're lying, then all of them are villagers? I didn't know that. I guess I should have read it more. Okay, let me just see if these other things have hint. All characters in my info are good. Oh, if they lie, yeah. Okay. Oh, that's also interesting. I didn't know that either. I thought you could have like 2 evils in there. Okay. Well, there we go. All right. I guess I should be reading this more, but let's go. Let's go. So, let's assume... Well, actually, that's pretty powerful then. Let's assume that this is a lie then, right? Yeah, let's do that. Let me go ahead and make an assumption that this is a lie then, okay? So if this is a lie, that means that everyone that this person is seeing is a villager, which means that number 2, number 6, and number 1 is a villager. So that's impossible, okay? Because both of the... Actually, this one, yeah, it sees both of them. So in that case, this one definitively has to be telling the truth, all right? So this is true through and through, okay? And it includes... This is really useful. It includes number 1 and number 2 in there. So that means number 6 has to be a minion, all right? So we just go ahead and execute number 6. All right. There we go. So that's the poisoner. So we know one of these 2 is potentially corrupted, or is corrupted. All right? So now, this is a villager. So number 2, number 3, and number 6. So this one has to be true as well, because they can't all be villagers, obviously. So this is true. And that means that this is the minion, okay? Number 3. And this has to be the outsider then. Okay, so this is the doppelganger. So let's put Dop there, okay? This knight is a villager, so they're good. And then this Empress is saying between number 2, number 4, and number 7, one of them is evil. So that could very well be true, although the Empress itself could be making shit up. And this is saying there's no corrupted characters, but that should be impossible. So this is a lie, because the poisoner... the poisoner would have poisoned one of the 2 neighbors. The only way that that wouldn't be possible with this setup would be if the poisoner was next to the demon and the doppelganger, because they wouldn't poison the doppelganger because they only poison villagers. So this for sure is a lie, which means that this bard, I believe, has to be evil. So let's go ahead and kill the bard. We love killing bards. All right, there we go. Look at that. All right, that one was a quick one. Come on, one more. What's one more? Let me just get through all the villages, actually. There we go. All right, we're learning things along the way, too. I didn't know certain deductions there that I could make based off the hints. Anyway, here we go, here we go. We got the Ba, we got the Poisoner, we got the Counselor, we got the Doppelganger, Drunk Bombardier. So we got a lot of options here. There's a little bit of misinfo between the Poisoner and the Drunk. The Doppelganger can confuse things. I mean, yeah, with the Counselor and stuff. This one will be interesting. Okay, let me just see if there's any reason not to flip everything over. Nope, we're good. So let's just flip everything over here. Alright, so let me go over Confessor. So, Confessor, they, if they're evil or they're corrupted, they say, I am dizzy, and they cannot lie. So we know that this character is either evil or corrupted. There's 2 Bombardiers, so there's a double claim there. There's no other sources of double claims here, except, no, there could be Doppelganger, but Doppelganger only disguises themselves as a villager, and there's a double claim between the Bombardiers. Okay, so we're going to have to differentiate between these 2, but this one is at least one evil. Because they could technically both be evil, right? So there we go. We have at least one evil there. The Confessor is saying that they're either corrupted or they're evil, which is useful. And this is saying number 4 is a real knitter. There's only one pair of evil, okay? So the knitter tells you how many evils are adjacent to each other, which means that if this is true, there would just be like one pair of them. The Enlightened is saying the closest evil is counterclockwise, meaning it would be over around this way, okay? So, but we have a double claim between these mediums as well, alright? So, That could be doppelganger. Or they're both confirming the knitter, by the way. Alright, so let's assume that this is a doppelganger pair. Let's assume that's not a doppelganger pair, because that's interesting. That's more interesting, right? If it's not a doppelganger pair, that would mean that... So let's say there's a drunk in play and there's like a bombardier in play, okay? Let's say there's no doppelganger, okay? If that's the case, then at least one of these two would have to be evil, but they're both agreeing. So that would mean that one of them would be evil and one of them would be corrupted, or they would both be evil. So I want to go through the both evil scenario real quick. Let's go ahead and check that out. Actually, let me just check the hints on all these things just to make sure I'm not missing anything. My info includes disguised character. Ooh, if they lie, my info includes a disguised character. Got it. So if they're lying, then the knitter would have to be evil. So that's actually, it's impossible for both of these guys to be evil, right? So one of them would have to be corrupted if one of them is evil. So this does have to be... Yeah. Alright, so... The reason they both couldn't be evil is because they would both be confirming a disguised character here that's not in a double claim, so that would place 4 evils. The 1 here, the 2 there, and then a 4th one there, which does not work. So at least one of these has to be good. Okay? Let's assume that 1 is evil, 1 is corrupted. Alright? So... if 1 is evil, 1 is corrupted, the only way that they could be corrupted is from a poisoner or the drunk. Okay? And there would have to be a drunk because there would be no doppelganger, for sure. So that works. You know what? I'm going to use the judge to determine if this is a lie, okay? They're saying that number 3 is lying. Okay, so there has to be a lie between one of these two. Alright, there has to be a lie there. But it could be a corruption from either being a drunk, but these are both double confirming this here. You know what, so let's assume that this is a doppelganger pair and they're both good. Okay, let's go with that path here. So let's say they're both good. And let's say that this is true. Okay? True, you speak the true here, okay? So true and true, then this would have to be a good character, which is either telling the truth or corrupted, right? But it's not drunk. If it's corrupted, that would specifically mean that either this judge or this bombardier would be the poisoner. But if it's corrupted, then the judge would, if they're the bombardier, would not say that they're lying, okay? So that would mean that, let's say that this is true as well, so let me make an assumption there. Let's say you're good, and then this is true, okay? Then in that case, this would have to be a lie, right? And then this would have to be specifically the poisoner. So poison. Okay. And there would not be, there would either be 0 or 2 pairs of evil players. If there's 2 pairs of evil players, that's impossible, because we've already made the assumption that this medium is good. So it would have to be 0 pairs of evil players, which would mean that this jester would be good. And then we'd have to place some more evils around. So this one is saying the closest evil is counterclockwise, which would mean that, you know, you're good. Then this confessor would probably be evil. Okay, so what I think I'm going to do here, I'm going to kill the confessor and go from there, okay? The confessor, if they're corrupted, that'll be valuable info. Alright, so they were corrupted. Okay, so we got a little bit of info there. So they were corrupted, which would mean... But they're not the drunk, I don't think. You receive 4 damage when you execute me, so they have to be next to the poisoner. So one of these two has to be the poisoner. Which is interesting. So it's probably the upper bombardier. So let me think here. I'm going to use this jester here. And I want to check the upper bombardier. I'm going to check this upper bombardier and these two mediums, I think. Yeah. Two evils among them. Two evils among them is interesting. So, let me go ahead and clear this screen off actually real quick. Two evils. Alright, so let's go ahead, let's start this up, right? So, greater than or equal to one evil, right? You know what, let's make the assumption, let's try to go through the assumption that they're both evil just to check this out. So let's say you're evil, you're evil, okay? If that's the case, there would have to be a drunk and a doppelganger. So if there's a doppelganger, that means that both of you are good, right? Which means that this is a lie. And then they're being corrupted. Presumably, that would be by the poisoner right here. So poison would have to be right here. So poison right there. And there would have to be a drunk somewhere else. So drunk somewhere else. They're both good. But they're confirming each other. And so this has to be true information if there's a doppelganger. Right? So this would be true. This would be true. You would have to be good. And then there's only one pair of evil. They cannot be the drunk. They're also not being poisoned. So this would be true. Which would mean that this would have to be a lie. Because they're saying number 4 is lying. Okay? And then this is saying closest to evil is counterclockwise. This is good. This is good. Actually, that one I could do in red, but I'll go back to that. Actually, let's just fucking do that right now. Okay. Yeah. Let's go ahead and do that. So you're good for sure. Because we executed you, and you're good. I'm doing a witch hunt, baby. Alright, let me keep going here. So evil there, which would mean that you would have to be good, which would mean that you're the drunk. So drunk right there. Because you would have to be good, you would have to be good, and then they're both evil. So that would mean that this jester is also evil right there, right? Which seems to work, okay? So if they're both evil bombardiers, then that would work. Okay? Drunk lie, that all looks good. I don't know. Let me try to figure something out here. Let's try to get a contradiction in the mix here. Let's find a contradiction. Find a contradiction here. So let's go with this jester here, okay? So let's assume that this is true. So 8, 7, 1. Let's go with both of these being evil. Let's see. Oh, no, we already determined they can't both be evil. So that would mean that if this is true, this bombardier has to be evil. Right? So let's go ahead and say that. So true, and then that would make you good, and then this bombardier would have to be evil, and then one of these two would have to be evil. Right? And this confessor, there needs to be a poisoner here. So... well, actually, you know what? This is more interesting. What if I say, this is the poisoner? So you are the poisoner over here. Right? So let's say you're the poisoner poisoning this confessor right here. They're two evils. So, I mean, actually, wait, that could still... So I'm having a little bit of trouble with this one. This one's interesting. All right, so there are two evils between these. Let's go back to that. Sorry, I got distracted. So this is true. Let's say that this is true. That you're good. Then you have to be evil, for sure. And one of these two has to be the poisoner. I mean, we already kind of know that. And then, but these are telling... There would have to be one evil between these two. So this has to be a lie then. So this is a lie, and this is a lie, and one of them has to be the drunk. There we go. Okay. So that's a lie. So that means that you would have to be evil, and this is a lie, which would mean that this is true, and you would be good. And then there would be either no pairs of evil players or... Well, there'd have to be 0 pairs of evil players, so then you would be good. Okay? And that would be the drunk and the bombardier placed. Just like that. And then let's check this one. Alright, so there's no more places where lies can go. So closest to evil is counterclockwise. This is a lie. Counterclockwise. This could be evil, so that could be true. That works. Okay? That all works, is the problem. All right. Well, we're seeing a lot that this bombardier up here, it works that they're evil. Let's try to see if they're good. What that implies. All right. So what if they're good? Then that means that this bombardier down here is evil, and then you over here would have to be the poisoner. So we have 2 evils placed if this bombardier is good. There we go. Okay, so... If that were the case... Closest evil is counterclockwise would be true. Unless this judge is also evil. So let's assume that the jester is telling the truth here. With this scenario, so we'll say true, okay? If that's the case, then you have to be evil as well, and this is a lie, and this is a lie. Right? In which case, we have too many evils. No, but they'd be drunk. So you'd be the drunk. Specifically. So drunk right here. Which would mean this is true. And then you're good. And then that works as well. So this is true. So that works. Okay, well let's assume that the jester is lying then next. Alright, so let's say that this is an evil jester that's lying. Actually, let's not assume that they're evil. Let's just assume this is a lie. And then we'll figure out if that implies they're evil later. Alright, so if this is a lie, then there are not 2 evils. There's either 0 or 1 evil within that range. But we already know... Sorry, with 0... Yes, no, there has to be 1. Just 1. So you would have to be good... And you would have to be the drunk, right? So drunk. Because you would be agreeing with a lie right there. So this would be a lie, which would mean that this knitter would have to be evil. So regardless, this would be a lie, right? Actually, wait, that last one doesn't work. Yeah, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. So, because there would be a pair of evil players right here. So that doesn't work. That does not work at all. So, this would be a lie. Okay, so the yellow scenario does not work at all. Let's go ahead and erase all the yellow then. Okay, so yellow doesn't work. So this one has to be a lie, actually. You know, let me just get rid of all this, and I'll put this in blue. Because, we know that in that case, the jester would have to be lying. There we go. Okay, so... Jester is lying in this case. If this guy's good. Okay? So that's a lie. And that means that this one has to be good. And the drunk, right? As I was saying earlier. Which means that the knitter has to be evil and then lying, right? Lie. Which means that there is no, that's impossible. Alright, that's impossible. Alright, so this upper bombardier has to be evil, I'm assuming. Alright, let's go ahead and give that a try. Alright, there we go. Okay, that's good, because otherwise we would just automatically lost. We would have lost anyway there, but because we're only at 5 health now. But that was the poisoner, and that's the one poisoning the confessor, okay? So, let's figure this out from here, okay? This one's taking me a bit here, taking me a bit. So, there's 2 evils there. The lower bombardier could be evil. There's only 1 pair of evil. Okay, well, let's try to place the pair right here. Okay, let's try to do that next. Okay, so let me just, first of all, I keep erasing everything, but whatever. Alright, so we know you're evil. We know you're good. We know that, you... that's all we know, really, I guess. So, let's figure this out, okay? So, let's assume that the pair of evil players is right here, alright? And let's say this is true. Actually, wait. Let's just assume this is true. No. Okay. Let's try to assume that you're evil, okay? And we'll go from there. You're evil. What does that imply? No, that doesn't tell me anything either, right? Well, it does, it does. I mean, I guess it tells me there's a doppelganger. Yeah, okay, wait. Let's say you're evil. That means both of these guys are good. And cannot one of that means that this would be true, right? So if that bombardier is evil, then this would have to be true, meaning that you're the real knitter. But there's still a drunk out there, right? So you are good, and you are not drunk, and you are not poisoned, which means that this would be true. Which means that there is 1 pair of evil players out there, meaning it could be the bombardier and the jester. It would have to be the bombardier and the jester, alright? So that would be false, so that'd be a lie right there. But then this judge would be saying that the knitter is lying, which does not work. Because we've already placed all of our... Oops, sorry, this should be an X. Excuse me. We've already placed all of our evils. And we've already placed the... Well, no, there could be the drunk here. This would have to be the drunk, right? Yeah, let's see. So you'd have to be the drunk. Have not placed the drunk yet. And then the closest evil is counterclockwise. Boom, boom. Boom, boom. Not true. So that does not work. Okay, that doesn't work. So this lower bombardier has to be good. We know that now. Okay, there we go. So we know lower bombardier's good. There we go. Okay, here we go, here we go. You're good. That means that there's either a drunk or a doppelganger remaining. Let's assume that there's a drunk. Well, let's assume there's a doppelganger. I don't know. I don't know. But this is good. This is good information. This is good information. There's only one pair of evil. Number 4 is lying. And then we have knitters confirming... Or sorry, mediums confirming the knitter. 1, 7, 8, there are 2 evils. If that's true, there has to be a drunk in the mix. So, let's go back. Let's try to assume that you're true. Okay, so let's say this is true. And you're good. If that's the case, there's a drunk. These are both lies, right? So this is a lie, and this is a lie. And there's one evil between these and one drunk. Because then you would have to be evil at that point. Or I guess, could you... No, yeah, this would have to be true because there's already one evil right there. So you would have to be evil, and this would have to be a lie, which means that this would be true, and you would be good. This judge right here, okay? And then this is saying the closest evil is counterclockwise, which would mean that we already have the drunk out in play, which would mean that this medium would have to be the evil one, and you would have to be the good one. And the drunk. So drunk right there. So then we have poisoner, whatever this one is, whatever this one is. There's only one pair of evil players. That's a lie because they're not paired up. This would be true. And then we're good to go. Okay? So that would be assuming that the jester is telling the truth. So that works. Let's assume that the jester is lying this time, okay? So let's say lie. Let's not assume that they're the drunk or not yet. Let's just say they're lying. That means that there's either 1 or 3 evils. Alright, so let's start off with 3, okay? So... evil, you would have to be good and the drunk specifically, but then that doesn't work because there would be one pair. So that doesn't work. So it would have to be 1. So they would still have to be... This one is always going to be good no matter what. So let me go ahead and erase that and replace that with a confirmed red mark here that this guy has to be good no matter what. There we go. But if this one's a lie, then you are good over here. Alright? So those would both be good. It could be the doppelganger. It would have to be the doppelganger. And they would be confirming that the knitter is good. And not the drunk, so this would be true in the lie case for the jester, which means that there would be one pair of evil players out there, which would mean that this jester would have to be the drunk. And that would mean that these two would have to be the evil ones, right? Because this guy's good, this guy's good, this guy's good, 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 good. So it would have to be both of these. And then it would say the closest evil is counterclockwise. So that works, I think. Because this one would be lying there, this one's lying there. But the jester is good in either case. So let's go ahead and mark that in red. So we know the jester is now good. But could be the drunk. So we might be at an impasse here. Let me just see. Because either of... I mean, it's basically these two are evil. or these two are evil together. And there isn't a real way of differentiating between the two. I'm just trying to think, is there a way to differentiate between the two, or do I just have to guess? So I may have flubbed it with the Jester earlier, but I don't know. I don't know if I could have done that differently. And maybe the Judge as well. So... counterclockwise. I'm just trying to think. There's no equidistant shit that I can use here. Nope. Alright, well, I guess I just gotta guess. I'm gonna guess, I'm gonna guess these two. Nope. Alright, well, there we go. It was those two. Well, it was just a 50-50. Ah, that's a bummer. That's a bummer. Alright, well, let's try to get to the, next Ascension still. Alright, let's go ahead and... I may have, you know, misused the whatchamacallit, the, Jester, right? But whatever, it's fine. Alright, we have 5 villagers, 1 outcast, 2 minions, 1 demon. We have the Lilith. We have these minions here. We got the Wretch. We got all this shit. Okay. There we go. So, let's see. Is there an architect? There's no architect, so it doesn't matter left versus right. There's no additional outsiders, so there's just gonna be the 1 outsider. We want to check adjacent characters for the most information from the lover here, which tells us how many evil characters they're adjacent to. Yeah, let's just go from there. Okay, so number 1, medium. Number 6 is a real bard. So I could flip them over, but instead I'm gonna leave it. So if the demon kills them, then we'll know that this guy's telling the truth, okay? So let's just keep going around like this. We have the Wretch there. Let's go with you. Enlighten closest evil is clockwise. So that's definitively a lie. And let's move over here. So this is a knitter right there. Alright, they did kill number 6. So number 6 is a real bard. Okay, good to know. And let's flip you over. Let's flip you over. You. And there we go. Alright, so we go down to 6 health here. Alright. So, let's start annotating. Okay. So, closest evil is clockwise. Is definitely a lie. Because they're sitting right next to the Wretch. And the Wretch is either going to be evil, or, well, no, they're not. This is confirmed good, because there's nothing else claiming Wretch. And this medium is, you know, telling us a, yeah, so the Wretch is confirmed good now. Okay, so confirmed good. This is confirmed a lie. And let's see here. So, is there any form of corruption in here? There is no forms of corruption at all. So that means that this has to be evil. Alright, there we go. We got the Lilith right there. So they're evil. There's 3 pairs of evil. Alright, well, we'll get back to that. So, that's interesting though, right? So imagine this. 3 pairs of evil would mean 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, or something like that. But there's only 3 evils, so it would have to include the Wretch. So for this to be true, it would have to be these 2, and these 2. Right? But this guy's telling the truth. So that's false, so you gotta be evil. No, they're not. Okay, well, I messed up then. Okay, so there's 3 pairs of evil. Number 6 is a real bard. Oh, I forgot about the puppeteer. Okay, never mind. So this could be the puppeteer, this could be the puppet. Yeah, alright, whatever. Hey, I took a shot. I'm 2 cards away from the closest evil. That's true. It is true. Okay. So that's all good. So true right there. Like that. This one is true. So there are 3 pairs of evil players. So you're evil. Your counting is evil. Puppet Puppet Master, and then, you know, the one additional one would be off somewhere else, right? But it would have to include the Wretch, right? I guess we could have Puppet, Puppet Master, which a Puppet, Puppet Master, Twin, or some shit like that, right? And then it'd be 1, 2, 1, 2, and then there would be the pair there. Okay, never mind. So, yeah, we can't really make super big deductions about that yet. But these are both true. I'm 2 cards away from the closest evil. This one's good. This one, it's arbitrary. Closest evil is counterclockwise, meaning back in this direction. But you're good, and then it would be here. But the thing is that that's impossible, right? Because there has to be a bunch of evils up here. So this is for sure a lie. And so that has to be an evil right there. All right, there we go. So we got a minion right there. 2 adjacent evils right there. Okay. Number 6 is a real bard. This has to be true, right? True. Because they were not disguised. So that's all good. And that means that this is one pair. And then that would also mean that this would be a pair. And this would be a pair. So Puppeteer. Yeah. Okay. I believe that's what's going on here. So let me go ahead and just kill him. Alright. Puppet. Puppeteer. Alright, there we go. Alright, final one, and then I'll call it a day here. Call it a day. Let's go ahead and clear this shit out. Alright, what have we got? What are we working with here? So we got Ba. We got a minion. We got a shaman. Okay. Plague Doctor, Bombardier, Lover, Nitcher, blah, blah, blah. Alright, we have the Baker out. And there we go. Alright, so let's just start flipping. 1, I'm the original Baker. Okay, that can line up. There are 2 pairs of evils. Fortune Teller, Gem Crafter, Judge. I was a Scout. Interesting, though. So this either meant that none of these were villagers or they're lying. Because this should have turned one of these villagers into a Baker. But let's continue on here. Alright, so where are our double claims? Because we have a shaman, right? So we've got these 2 are the same, but they could have made each other into that. They were a scout, so this could have been the double claim. The thing if that was, and this Baker should have turned this, I say that I was a random villager roll. Alright, well, let's see here. 1 evil adjacent to me, number 5. I mean, one unrevealed Baker becomes a Baker. There should have been another Baker up here, right? Or maybe it just happens one time. Anyway, whatever. Let's see here. So, let's figure this out. So we have a Plague Doctor here. There's no other way that an outsider could get in the mix there. I guess, oh wait, the Plague Doctor could have corrupted them. Yeah, okay. So, this Plague Doctor has to be good, because they're the only outcast in the mix, right? So they have to be good. There's a double claim here. This Baker could have been corrupted by the Plague Doctor, is what I'm wondering. In fact, I'm going to check that right now. Right off the rip. They're corrupted. Alright, so number 2 is evil. And number 6 is corrupted. So let's go ahead and kill you. Alright, so that is the Ba. Okay. So we have 1 of the 3 evils. You were corrupted. That's why you didn't turn any of these guys into another Baker. Okay. So number 5 or number 8 is a minion. Ba is 1 card away from closest evil. So if that's true, it would mean that one of these 2 is evil. But it's not this Baker. These Bakers are confirming each other. So let's go ahead and write that in. So, you're good. You're good. You were a scout. And that's the only double claim that we've got, which means the scout up here is good. We already know that you're corrupted. So let's just say, I mean, well actually this could have been a lie though. Oh, that's a lie, so we don't know that's the double claim. Never mind. this could have been something else. In fact, it would be something else, because they are corrupted, and they say that they were a random villager role. So, actually, I mean, I guess it could be, but we don't know that. We don't know that. Alright, anyway. So number 5 or number 8 is a minion. Well, we know that number 8 is not a minion. So number 5 could be a minion. Number 3 is good. Here we have the lover that's saying that one of the adjacents is evil. So let's go ahead and go down that route. Let's say that this is, whoops, my bad. Let's say that this is true, right? So you're true. That would mean that you're evil, and this is a lie. Okay? Which means the Ba is not one card away from the closest evil. There would have to be more than that. So you would be good. Okay? I mean, you're obviously evil. Alright, so... if that's true... I mean, so you would be good up here, and then maybe you would be evil, but no, but then you'd be telling the truth. So you're telling the truth, so that's all good. So then we've got evil there, 1, 2, 3. Okay, there we go. And number 2 is evil, blah, blah, blah. Number 3 is good. This could have been double claiming anybody, so that doesn't really help us because they're corrupted. Number 5 or number 8 is a minion. So number 5 could be the minion. Alright, well, let's get the judge then to check the scout up here. I think that's going to be the most useful. It's either the scout or the oracle. The oracle, though, is directly accusing the judge of being a minion, so they're kind of like not confirming each other. So let's get the judge. I could do the fortune teller though as well. So fortune teller, I could use the bakers to be a control to compare somebody else. So I'm going to do that actually. So I'm going to use this baker here, which is definitely good. Compare them with the judge. And they're saying that's false. Okay. And then I want to use this judge to check this. They're saying number 9 is lying. Okay, okay. So we got some info to work with here. Number 9 is lying according to the judge down here. This oracle is saying that number 5 is a minion. The fortune teller is saying that number 5 is not evil. So we've kind of got two worlds, right? The scout is saying that the fortune teller's evil, which would be saying that the judge is evil. So it's basically like fortune teller, judge, both evil, everything else correct. Although, except then this lover is lying, right? So that doesn't work. That does not work. So it cannot be the fortune teller judge. It's the scout. Alright, so scout is the one that's evil right there. And then we have to find the last one, so it'd be you. There we go. Alright. We did it. Ascension completed. Next ascension, baby. And there you go. I mean, I want to keep going, you know, but I'll probably end it here. But this is a pretty fun little game. Let me know what you guys think. Hope you had fun watching, but I like this one, man. I'm looking forward to the full release of this one, man. This is showing some promise. But take it easy, everybody. I will talk to you later.